Hi everyone, I'm Marcus Chen, and welcome to your colorful Wonderland. Wow, it's hard to write and speak at the same time. Your colorful, wonderful, your colorful Wonderland. Let me write that again. So this is the first coloring tip video for all of you. I don't have any fancy music or title page, but hopefully I will soon. The most important thing I thought was to begin by showing you a tip, because I guess that's why you're here. So for those of you who love to color and love to draw too, I thought it would be best to start with the most obvious tip, which is hatching. So hatching is a basic mark that you make in drawing or in coloring, and it involves just the repetition of a line many times over that goes in the same direction. So this is just an exaggerated, zoomed in version of what I just said. So these lines are repeated over and over again, and there is, in this particular case, because it's zoomed in, there's space in between the two lines. But if you place these lines closer to each other, you'll notice that it eventually and essentially fills in with a shape of color or tone or value. In this case, it's purple. And if you sort of do it quickly, you'll start to see it mimicking the movement that I'm sure many of you create when you're coloring. So if someone sees you doing that, you can tell them that you're hatching. So again, hatching is just laying down marks, lines that move in the same direction many times over. Now, the cool thing about hatching is when you do this all over your page, it creates a nice sort of, organized look about your image. Hatching can also create different types of gradients, such as going from light to dark or dark to light, and this is what I mean. So the farther apart the lines are, the lighter the color, but as you place the lines closer to each other, it becomes a darker color, and even closer to the point where some of the lines may even be going on top of the ones beneath it. It creates an even darker color. Now this, so you can see it going from light to dark. Now this is also coupled with the amount of pressure that you will probably need to put on the paper as you're putting down your hatch marks in order to create a gradient. So the lighter the pressure, the lighter the color. But as you increase the pressure, you'll notice that there's a value transition going from lighter to darker, and even more pressure, it can get very, 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 very dark. So you can see right away, again, light to dark and dark to light. And if you have problems seeing this transition, what you might want to do is just squint a little bit. And if you squint, you can see the darks come out and the lights recede. So again, so this is hatching, and this is gradients or gradations, moving from light to dark, and then dark to light. Another form of mark making in the hatching family is cross hatching, which some of you may be familiar with, and it is exactly the way that you might assume. Cross hatching is basically two sets of lines that cross over each other. So this is what I mean. So let's quickly lay down a set of hatched lines, again, moving in one direction. Cross hatching would be laying down a second set of lines in the opposite direction. So you can see again over here where the lines have cross-hatched, it's darker than the area that has been hatched. So again, this is another way to create gradients or areas of dark next to areas of light. So next, we're going to talk about contour hatching. And this will be our final mark that I'll be describing today. So contour refers to the outer edge of a shape. So if we create this kind of organic looking shape, this is the contour edge. I'm tracing around it. Now, if we were to use regular hatch marks that we learned just earlier, hatching and cross hatching, which are straight edges, this is how you would fill the shape using those lines. And again, assuming we're zooming in on this shape where we can actually see the distance between the two lines, this would be the first set of hatch marks. And to do the second set of cross-hatched marks, they would look like this. So the shape essentially still looks flat. But if we were to redo this shape using contour hatching, these lines, the hatching lines, actually follow the curve of the edges of this shape. So the first set of lines, for example, could go this way. And I usually like to work outside in because when you get to this center, you kind of have to compromise and navigate the bend of the curve so that it blends evenly between the two. So in this case, I'll just kind of improvise like that. So that's the first set of contour hatched lines. And then the second contour hatching, which crosses it, would reflect this curve here. So like this. And again, as you approach the center, it becomes a bit precarious and you have to try your best to blend the curves so that it looks nice. So I think the most obvious takeaway from this is this shape, this organic shape, which used to be flat in 2D, all of a sudden, after using a contour hatched line, turned into a three-dimensional form, more or less. It definitely looks like you could pick up this shape and not pick that one up. So why use contour lines? So one of the reasons is because it brings a different kind of believability to the object that you're coloring. So for example, if we choose an apple, so this is my apple, using a contoured hatched line will give it more form. So this flat apple will become more three-dimensional. So we can demonstrate using first a regular hatched and crossed hatched line to color this apple. And the first thing we should do is also try to figure out what the light source would be. So we're imagining that the light source is here. So the light is shining on the surface of the apple, and you can just sort of block it in. So this circle here would designate where the lightest part of the apple is. And if you were to use hatched and cross-hatched lines, it would essentially look like this. So keep in mind what we learned earlier about the amount of pressure to add. The more pressure you add onto the paper, the darker the image will look because you're leaving more pigment onto the paper. The lighter that you press down, the lighter the color will appear. So that's my first sort of go at it with my hatched lines, and now I'm adding more. And essentially I want it to go from dark to light, okay? So I'm just adding even more hatched lines to increase the darkness on this side. Now I just feel like, you know, I want it a bit darker, and I've decided that I want to add a set of cross hatching to give this apple a bit more darkness on the left side and hopefully make it look like it has more form. Okay, so this is it. So this is the apple colored with hatching and cross hatching. Now if you want to color this apple using a contour hatched line, keeping in mind that the light is coming in the same direction, hitting the apple on this side, so this is the brightest spot on the apple. For a contour hatched line, you would apply it along in a way where these hatch marks reflect the curve of this apple. Okay, and then we'll start on this side. Again, I'm doing it very, very light because I don't want to, I want to make sure that there's a nice gradation. So that's my first set. I'm coming from the outside in again because the outer edge is darker on the left side. Pressing a bit harder and then lightening up as I approach the highlight or the white spot of the apple. Now I want to do a set of contour hatching crossways from the direction that I was working in earlier. So initially I was going like this and going like this, and now I want to go this way with my new set of marks. So and you can really take any part of the edge of this apple and let those edges inform the direction that your contour hatching will move in. So there you go. So this apple, hopefully to you, looks a bit fuller and rounder than this one over here. And this is, I feel like, one of the benefits, again, of using contour hatching for your color. So next we are going to put what we learned to practice, and what I've done is I printed out a tiny cute fish from the Mermaids in Wonderland coloring book, and we're just going to focus on coloring a part of it, and I decided it will be the tail. And we're not going to use a hatched or cross-hatched line. We're going to use contour hatching and move from dark to light, and also move from purple to blue. I wanted to use two colors, and the reason why I chose purple and blue, in this case it's violet, Prismacolor Premier, and the blue is a true blue, again, Prismacolor Premier, is because these two colors sit next to each other on the color wheel. And we can talk about that on another day, but the color violet or purple has a little bit of blue in it, and so it really transitions nicely into the other color. So purple really blends nicely with the blue, and the blue blends nicely with the purple, and you'll see what I mean. So one other thing that I like to use, well, two other things. I always keep this in my back pocket. It is just straightforward pencil sharpener. But in addition to that, I also carry a sandpaper block. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. You could use a sandpaper block or a regular piece of sandpaper, but I use it because sometimes I like to rub the tip of my colored pencil on it to give it more of a fine tip. I also feel like it prolongs the life of my colored pencils because oftentimes I find that I break the lead in the pencil sharpener. I mean, I do it all the time. So in any event, this is really a good thing, I feel like, to keep around. And it's, you just lightly rub it and you'll get a nice fine tip. So let's begin. So again, contour hatching, when you lay down the lines, it really mimics or reflects the outer edge of that shape that you're filling in. So if we focus on this area here, we will start to lay down the lines in sort of a curved fashion. And again, I want to go from dark to light and then purple to blue. So I'll just fill this in, and I'm working very, very, very lightly. I do not push down hard to begin with because I find that it hurts my hands. And I've been illustrating for about 14-15 years already, and I do not need to add to the existing carpal tunnel that I have. So using colored pencils, I really do. I layer it on very lightly in translucent layers. So there you go. So that's sort of the first layer, super light. And then the second layer, I'll come in with the blue. And like I said, there's already some blue in the purple. So when you lay down the blue on top of the purple, you'll see that it will blend and transition nicely one color into the next. So there you go. And where the blue sort of fades, that's where I start to add and overlap the blue onto the purple. So funny, there's this whole trend now with mermaid hair. People are dyeing it different shades of purples and blues and pinks. That was kind of my inspiration for choosing these colors right now. So there you go. So this is really, again, a contoured hatched line moving from purple to blue, but now I want to create a stronger gradient or gradation. And so I'll go back in with the purple and really dig in there and leave that pigment in the paper. And I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm literally putting down one line after the other, one line after the other. I'm not kind of just like scribbling. So there you go. And it depends on how far you want or where this gradient to begin, where you want it to transition from one color to the next. And instead of leaving the tips blue, let's just take it all the way down. And if you want to create more of an, make it overall cohesive, what you could do is take this blue, because it's lighter than the purple, and just lightly go on top of all of the areas that you've assigned color to, and it will help with the blending. For me, I know everybody's different, but for me, I don't worry too much about making a mess or staying inside the lines. I kind of like the handmade quality of things. In my other illustration work, I use the computer all the time, and so when I was working on this coloring book, it's all done by hand, brush and ink, and so I liked that the lines were a bit uneven, because again, it was just a personal taste. And so that's it. So that is an example of contoured hatching using two colors, moving from dark to light and purple to blue. So again, thank you so much for spending some time with me. My name is Marcus Chin, and my books are Fairies in Wonderland, Mermaids in Wonderland, and Elves in Wonderland. And if you want to hear more and see more tips on coloring and also drawing, follow me at yourcolorfulwonderland.wordpress.com. Thanks again. Bye.